Hey everyone, welcome back to Rugged DIY. I'm Steve Mikulich. Today we're just going to be wrapping up this bedroom renovation. We are just about done. We're going to be working on installing the trim around the doorway for the French doors, and doing the trim around the bedroom, the base trim, and finishing the trim around the windows. Now after this video, I'm going to follow up and do all the caulking around the room, and then there's just a little bit of touch-up paint that I'll have to do after that. And this is done, ready for carpet. In fact, I have carpet scheduled for installation in a couple of weeks. So I've just got to wrap this up. It'll probably be about maybe 4 or 5 more days worth of work, and then this is completely done. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been working on a little bit of stuff offline or off the video. I did all of the trim around the doors inside of the hallway in between the rooms, and I've already done the baseboards or the base trim inside that hallway area as well. It's just kind of, work that I can't really shoot, so I didn't really feel like it was necessary to capture. I also went ahead and put the trim around the inside of the closet, because I can't really fit the camera inside of here, so it's not something I can really show you anyway. Now, one of the things that I did after I put the finish nails in all of the trim is I came around with a spackle and did layers of spackle until I got a nice smooth surface on all of those nail holes. I'll show you some of that today just to catch you up on what I've done, and maybe somebody could use that as kind of a pointer. But the first thing I'm going to do to kick off the rest of this is I'm going to take my hinges, and I've got a little screw jig. Actually, it's already on here, so I'll go ahead and show you that. So I've got this little kind of screw jig that it aligns the holes perfectly. So when you're screwing in your hinges, that you don't get all kind of kiwakas with your hole. That way your hinge screws on nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach all of my hinges first. That way when I put up my trim, I'm not too tight into the hinge, and I can align my trim to the hinges and then align that top cap piece as well. I already made kind of a template for this kind of angle right here, and I'll show you that, and we'll cut that, get that all put together. And so that's where we'll begin. We're gonna build the trim around the French door closet opening first. Then we'll do the trim around the windows, and we'll build the trim around the base, and that'll be the end of the video. We're done for today. And thank goodness we are at the end of this bedroom renovation. So let's get going. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do, the pin I'm going to place going up, I'm just going to put my hinge right inside where I routed out the cutout for the hinge. I'm going to take my jig and align it right to that hole. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to put this on screw or drill setting so that it doesn't hit that kind of torque setting. All right. All right, so that's kind of it. Just puts in a nice little hole. I'm going to do that 3 or 2 more times on this one. And it just kind of drills it into the perfect depth. That way you're not going too deep, and like I said, you're not bouncing all over the place. And it's nice because you end up with a perfect hole. Let me go ahead and attach these real quick. All right, that's it. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and throw in all 6 hinges, and then we'll come back and start working on the trim. But see, now you can see I'll have some space to work off of. I'll be able to perfectly align that trim, and I'll show you that as soon as I finish installing the rest of these. Okay, this is the template that I made for the corner here. So you can see that it has the angle of the roof, and I also cut the angle for the joint. It's not obviously as long as it needs to be, but I'm going to get there. So this will sit here. I'm going to give it about 1/8 of an inch of separation, because here you can see that it's about 1/8 of an inch separation here. So if I take an uncut piece and I align it there next to the hinges, I'm just about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the inside of the jamb. And I marked on the outside edge of the piece of trim as well. That way I can measure, hold up my piece of trim that I cut, and I can measure from there to the outside edge of where I set my line, and then I can cut that piece so that it'll fit perfectly, and cut my angle onto it so that all of it will fit together nicely. So that's what I'm going to do. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the angle for the top piece, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut each side, attach them together, and then hang them. All right, now that I've cut all of my pieces, what I want to do is stick a couple of finish nails in them to just kind of hold them together. So get it nice and aligned as best you can. You know, one thing to keep in mind when you're messing around with trim is that, one, the trim's never going to perfectly align. Your walls aren't perfectly straight. You know, so don't drive yourself crazy trying to get it perfect. Just get it as good as you can, with the realization that when you come over it with caulking and paint, that any imperfections are going to be hidden. You're not gonna see all the little problems, the little bumps, the little cracks and creases. You just align it the best that you can, get it as straight as possible, and go ahead and attach them, but don't drive yourself crazy trying to get it perfect, because there's no perfect. Because the person that came in before you and set the wall did not set it perfectly. And there's no way that you're going to get, you know, these pieces of trim, which are often kind of bowing and, you know, whatever. There's no way you're going to get them to perfectly align. But get them to align the best that you can, and just keep moving. Okay, now I put 2 finish nails in it just so that it doesn't, you know, kind of turn. If you put 1 nail in, it's going to wobble back and forth. Now, there are a lot of videos on YouTube that go into much greater depth than I'm going to on putting together trim. There's a lot of really great videos on there. One of my favorite channels that I like to watch is Renovation, because he goes into really great detail on a lot of stuff. He actually is a professional contractor. And so, you know, if you want to go into some deep dives on trim or drywall, then I recommend a channel like that. This for me is just fun, and I enjoy sharing it. And I thought, you know, if anybody enjoys doing DIY stuff like me, but they're afraid to get into it, you know, maybe they would get something from seeing somebody else, you know, doing this kind of stuff. But certainly, I should not be your only source of information when it comes to renovation. So a slight change of plan. After attaching this side, I decided that this piece was a little bit more difficult to attach. So I'm going to try to attach this corner first and then attach this. We'll just try to get everything aligned nicely before then. Let me grab my level. I was just afraid that this was just a little bit too thin, so I didn't want to pierce through the wood and damage it. So I think what I'd rather do is align this piece first and set this to this as best I can. Yeah, I think that'll work. Want to come do me a favor? Come over here, hold this side up. Yep. Just hold right there, don't move. Yeah. Yeah. Hold. Right there. You good right there? Good? Okay. Do two here. Mm-hmm. Okay. That looks nice. You want to come help me over here? Just align the bottom for me. Let go a little bit. Right there. Oh, right there. I think that's good. Be able to fill any imperfections in with caulking. Okay, you can let go. All right, there we go. We got the trim installed around the door entrance for the French doors. All of these little nail holes will be covered up with a little bit of spackle and will be hidden by paint. So you won't even really be able to tell that those are there once everything is complete. You know, like I said, any sort of separation between the boards will finish with a little bit of caulking. And you really want to be able to see all of that. But again, don't get hung up on trying to make it perfect. Nothing in a home is perfect. Everything is covered with paint and plaster and caulking to hide the imperfections. There's no perfectly straight wall. You will drive yourself insane trying to get pieces of trim to align perfectly. And you'll see as we go around the room and put the trim in around the walls, I mean, the walls vary significantly from end to end. And so in your corners, sometimes you get a corner to line up perfectly and the joint is just beautiful. And sometimes, you know, your cuts, you know, just because the wall kind of caves in or is crooked or whatever, it bumps out. You know, I mean, you could sit there for hours trying to get the perfect cut until it perfectly aligns. But, you know, if you just have a little bit of separation, don't freak out about it, because you can fill it with plaster or caulk and everything will be just fine. So do the best that you can, and just realize that you're not the only one who can't get every piece of trim to align perfectly every time. But nobody's going to be able to see all that if you do a decent job of getting it to align as good as you can, and then filling it with plaster or caulking, you know, depending on how wide the crack is. So before we go on to the trim, I'm going to go ahead and measure the windows, put together those trim pieces, and hang those. And so that will be next. So now I'm going to start with the window, and what I want to do first is just get some measurements, make some marks along the window, and set up exactly where I want everything to fall. Because what I want to do is I want to attach the whole frame, right? So I want to cut the trim, and then I want to take the finish nails, attach it all together so it's, you know, a solid frame, and then attach it up to the wall. So I want to make sure that I have all the proper cuts before I start cutting all that trim and attaching everything. Otherwise, when I go to set it, it's just not going to sit right. So I'm going to do a few measurements, make a few marks, then double check my measurements, do my cuts, and then I'll hang it. 36 inches. Now this side is just a tad wider than this side. This side is 53 5/8, and this is just about a 1/16 of an inch wider. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it both sides 53 5/8, because I've got a little trim piece that when I put in the trim around the exterior here, I've got another little piece that will sit right inside here, right on top of that trim, and we'll kind of fill all of this in and make it look nice and finished. So even though it won't be perfectly, you know, lined up with this, you know, kind of wood opening, it'll give it that nice kind of square finished look. So I'm not going to worry that this side dips down a little bit lower than this side. But top and bottom both measure at 36 inches wide, so that'll be just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those pieces, attach them, and then we'll go ahead and hang it. Yeah. Good enough. The window frame itself is not perfectly straight. The window frame is not, and neither is the trim. That's why I'll be putting All right, so we're to the floor molding now. And what I wanted to show you is whenever I'm doing the molding, I like to start from a point where I have a known measurement. So these, the door trim is about 1/2 inch space from the subflooring. And so what I want to do in order for the carpet to get underneath the base molding, I'm going to place the bottom of my base molding in line with the bottom of my door trim. Nail those into place and work my way around the room. So I like to start from one side and work my way around. That way I can keep all of the trim within that 1/2 inch alignment and keep everything kind of straight. So I'll go ahead and set this one, and then we'll pick up at the end once I've finished it all, and I'll show you what the finished product looks like. Okay, so you can see there's a little bit of a gap right here. Kind of went in a little bit. I'm not really too worried about it. I can fill that in with caulking and it'll fill that right up. All of these holes from the nails, I'll come in and touch those up with a little bit of spackle and that'll fix that. But you can see it's got a nice corner here. That's going to be more noticeable. So making sure that that looks nice, a bit more important to me than that corner there. But so that's pretty much it. You know, just start a nice run, work your way around. I'll pick up at the end and I'll show you the finished product. Hey everyone, welcome back. It's actually the next day. Everything kind of took so long yesterday getting all the trim done. By the time we finished, it had already been 10 hours that I've been working on cutting the trim and hanging everything. So I just didn't feel like coming back and shooting the rest of the trim last night. But just to follow up, I always like to start when I'm doing the trim next to like the door trim, where you already have a measured distance between the bottom of the trim and the subflooring, because you want to have a little bit of space underneath the trim for the carpet to go underneath. So I start here and I work my way around. And essentially what I did is I went all the way around the room until I came back to the door. That way I had a measured height all the way through. So that's what we did. We got all of the trim done around the room now. Today I'm going to spend the day putting the spackle on all of the little nail holes and touching up any of the imperfections. So I'm just going to be working on that all day, just touching that up. If I'm able to get all of the spackle done, get everything filled in, then I'll probably start caulking today. Neither of those things are going to be the sort of thing that are going to be very interesting for a video. It's like watching paint dry. So I'm not going to shoot that, but I'll come back and pick up the video maybe tomorrow. I'm planning on cutting the doors down to size, sanding down the doors and prepping those for paint. So I'll probably pick up the video there, but I'll certainly show you, you know, the progress as I go. Just to show you what I got going on. Today is just going to be cleanup. I'm gonna get rid of all of the tools and everything that I no longer need because I've finished all of this work. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to clean up the room, clear everything out, get ready for painting all of the trim and doing all of the caulking, give myself the space in order to do that. But I mean, we're right there. We're right at the end now, just about ready for carpet. And I've got a deadline now. I've got to get all of this done by January 12th. So I've really got to hurry up and get moving. But I'm so excited to be done with this because I've got so many other projects that I want to work on. So I'm going to get going. I'm going to get this room cleaned up and start spackling around the room, filling in all these imperfections and get ready for paint. And I will see you on the next video.